Hello everyone, it's time for the ReQuest. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is Austin the Day Ghost. Oh, Austin, I can't hear you, man.
It's been a while since I've done that one.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but the mouthpiece has to be in front of your mouth.
I'll blame it I was on vacation. It's the jitters coming back.
You've been off the channel all of like 5 or 6 days, and you forgot how to speak into the mic.
Yeah, exactly.
Forgot how headsets work. Well, welcome back, Austin. I'll give you a step-by-step rundown of how to do the show if you need me to. But in the meantime, tonight we're going to tackle a movie that I have avoided for years and years. And this is a franchise that I have kind of threatened to do an overview of it. In a Super Chat goal for Captain Logan show, I think last year or the year before. And the idea was I would watch all of these and do kind of an overview discussion like I did with some horror franchises. I did that with Halloween and the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And I didn't quite reach it that night, Austin, so mercifully I didn't have to do that. But now I've been forced to watch one of them. And the only way I would ever really watch these would be by request. So I want to say thanks to Hot Soup for finally, I guess, weirdly broadening my horizons and forcing me to get outside of my comfort zone and watch a thing that just did not look remotely appealing to me. And here we are, 2001, the original Fast and the Furious.
I was gonna say, how much do you wish that you actually got that Super Chat goal and had to watch all of them? But your tone, I think, implies it entirely.
Well, my tone is more for how I always felt about these, just looking at advertising, where I'm like, that's not for me. That's not a thing that I really want to have to sit through. And they always just looked like dude bro dumb action movies, just like people with rocks for brains, driving cars real fast.
And one of them is The Rock after a certain point.
Oh yeah, I guess that I forgot about that. Yeah, I was thinking this is Vin Diesel's franchise, but I guess naturally they got to bring The Rock in here.
Yeah, and then they started feuding, so he had to spin off into his own movie.
It's so weird. What was that called? I can't remember.
It was like Fast Presents Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It was directed by the Deadpool 2 director, I think.
Wow, like this franchise turned into like a Baptist church and split off.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really funny. But yeah, Austin, you might be surprised to hear me say this, but like I didn't hate this.
And that's good.
If you put a gun in my head and force me to watch the sequel just based on this, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, just like, that's fine.
Like, I'm not stoked to, run off and watch more of these, because I was nervous after the first 10 minutes. The first few minutes of this movie, Austin, it felt to me like I was watching a movie in a different language. Like, I didn't really know what I was looking at. I was like, what are these people saying? This is not how people talk. And I don't know if I adjusted to it or if the writing got like a smidge better.
Well, there also just becomes a lot less writing as you get more and more car sequences.
That's fair. Yeah, but it just felt like the beginning of this movie is just a lot of people posturing for no reason I immediately understood. And it becomes a little clearer why people are acting the way they're acting as it goes along. Not that it's like a giant mystery or anything, and this is a very kind of paint by numbers, cookie cutter sort of plot, but I don't think it does a great job of making the characters at the start very sympathetic or making motivations real clear, because you've got Vin Diesel's kind of right-hand man going up to the our cop character, the undercover cop guy at the very start, like, I don't like you, get out of here, you suck, I'm gonna beat the crap out of you. And I'm like, I don't know why this guy's acting like this. It's just a lot of, again, kind of dude bro posturing. And then I guess he thought he was a cop from the beginning,
Hmm.
And that was why he was acting like that, but I didn't understand that at the start. And of course, we don't right away know that he's an undercover cop, so I guess they're trying to make all of that kind of mysterious, but it made me just immediately think all of these people are acting like very primal and like either children or animals, take your pick.
Well, yeah, that's why it's the Fast and the Furious. It's a bunch of primal animals behind the wheel of a car.
It just I got off to the wrong foot with it because the first 10 minutes it just felt like kind of like dogs marking their territory to me. And I hate stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I also hate when dogs mark
It's
their
like-
territory and I have to
You know what I'm talking about though, right?
Yeah.
I'm like I hate these people. Stop it.
Yeah, because that was you get like the tuna bit at the beginning, and I was like, "Oh, I'm here for this movie. This is gonna be great."
You thought
And
it was
then-
just gonna be really weird and kind of wacky.
Yeah. I was like, I don't think I had ever seen somebody call somebody that word in a PG-13 film over a tuna sandwich. I was like, I am here for this, and then it never got to those highs again.
No, that's true. It gets it gets pretty typical after that.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Just kind of
Like right from the get-go, I was like, oh man, like this feels like just a completely different time. Like I didn't even realize we could say that in PG-13 at this point. And there's a thing later on where they say the N-word, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I also didn't know they could say that in PG-13 at this point, but I guess so.
Yeah, something like this is really surreal to me because I guess now this is a relic and this is real nostalgic for people. And 2001 just doesn't feel that long ago to me. And yet there's all those places where I have to admit like times have changed.
Yeah, well, this goes back to a period where I'm like,
Like
oh,
how's
I
this
don't
movie
like.
almost 25 years old?
It was crazy. That is crazy. No, this goes back to a period where I'm like, oh, movies are kind of ugly.
Yeah. Well, I felt that way at the
It's like I
time
don't have
about
the nostalgia thing.
I felt that way at the time about a lot of this kind of stuff, which is why I didn't watch it. Like you got a real like kind of bleak
Exactly.
color palette for no good reason, and
Yeah, everything's just like really oversaturated and looks. It's like a Michael Bay thing too, where it's like
Yeah.
everything's shot at sunset or sunrise. And I'm just like, oh,
Yeah, I'm like-
I don't like looking at this.
the action's like super high frame rate.
Hmm. And it's super slow in certain places.
Yep.
Oh, I guess that was kind of just starting at that point.
Well, and that's the thing I wanted to mention too, and then I'll let Austin do a quick synopsis because it'll be funny. I was kind of struck by how TV this looked to me, and I don't say that as a slight against it. What I mean is, I feel like either something was in the air, and because I wasn't admittedly watching a lot of this kind of action movie at the time, so I don't want to say that this movie necessarily started a lot of what I'm about to talk about, although it probably helped popularize a lot of it. But this felt like the cinematic version, because it is cinematic enough. Like it feels like a thing that wants to be on the big screen. I'll give it that. But there are lots of TV shows right then and right after it that are trying to look like this. There's so much Smallville in this movie. And it was a really kind of odd experience where I was like, well, Smallville predates this by like 6 months, or like 8 or 9 months. It starts. Actually, no, that's not true, is it? This movie is summer of '01, and Smallville would have been in the fall. So Smallville's immediately after this. So actually, it is entirely possible that Smallville from the start is ripping this off. Which is crazy. Because I was trying to give Smallville the benefit of the doubt, thinking there must be other movies that look like this before this. But let me give you some examples. First of all, the way a lot of just the dialogue scenes are shot looks very CW to me. and then and like obviously lots of movies and TV shows do just real standard head close-ups and over the shoulder, but like just the camera placement, just how close we are to faces, it looks a lot like the CW to me. And then this movie does a lot of zoom in a like real shot into CG to show you what's happening inside of something. So it's like we got to go into the gas tank and then see what's happening there, or into some part of the car. That's a big Smallville thing. It does that constantly, where like kryptonite will get into somebody and then we'll have to zoom in to see the particles of it like in someone's blood. Like that's all over this movie. And the way it does like fast motion stuff is a lot like early Smallville. Like it was weird. It was like watching a big screen Smallville episode. And then when Smallville does a drag race episode, it's just this movie. And all the way down to the green lights under the cars, because they have like kryptonite nitrous in that. And so, like, it's just this movie. Now, Smallville is notorious for ripping off movies, like premises of films, and just turning it into an episode. But I didn't realize how Fast and the Furious it was from the beginning.
That's wild. So basically, this is like the Smallville movie, and then Final Destination is the X-Files movie.
Sure, although I think there are probably a lot of other things you could point at to be X-Files movies.
No, of course. I mean, that started out as like an X-Files premise, but I was just thinking of that because like that's also a really ugly-looking movie that I was thinking about a little bit.
Sure.
And it's at the same period.
And then, of course, this also has the CW thing where you're just watching pretty people drag racing. Mm-hmm. Like here's all these really gorgeous criminals. That was the other thing.
And Vin Diesel.
Sure, but something about the way he's shot makes me think I'm supposed to also think he's one of the most attractive people alive, right?
Yeah. He just loses points when he starts talking.
And maybe people think he's really attractive. I don't know. I don't know what I'm like. I know Vin Diesel's popular. I don't know if he's considered like. I don't know if he makes like, pretty people lists.
Mm-hmm. No, then you have Paul Walker, who has Justin Timberlake hair.
Yes. Which
is like maybe the most 2000s thing.
I was going to say the frost tips were real big right then.
Yeah, no, exactly. That was like the most 2000s-y thing in it.
Yeah, immediately I was put right back to where I was in high school.
You were like, I remember when I had frosted tips.
No, I just mean the world that I was in then. Like, some of the things right at the start of this that remind you of that time period, I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember the classes I was taking when this came out. And it felt kind of weird that this passed me by and I never ended up seeing it. Like, even like at somebody's house or something, just because of how supremely popular this franchise was. Like, somehow I managed to completely avoid it. It's got like 10 movies and it branched off.
Yeah, exactly.
Because aren't they at like Fast X now or something? Like, aren't there 10 of them?
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Fast X was the last one, and then I think it didn't do great, but they're still making 11 because it was like a two-parter movie.
Plus UDX, Vin Diesel probably assumes he's attractive. Robert, I did not have a mullet in 2001. That was actually shortly before I was shaving my head, which I did in part of high school. But I had more or less the haircut you guys were used to seeing me with before I grew my hair out.
A frosted tip mullet, though, would be the ultimate hairstyle.
I don't even know how you can do that. You're like, your hair needs to be up to have tips.
It's at the bottom, but then at the top, like at the front.
Busta Sim, this is just early 2000s style. You think this stands out? Check out the final episode of Columbo in 03. It also had the style for a show from the 1970s that was flopping. It's wild. Well, and it's funny you say that because I was kind of struck by how just real standard this was. And like we're pointing out some things that stand out about the early 2000s, but like I said earlier, real typical of the genre and of, I don't know how else to put it, but just like pretty boy kinds of things where it's like, oh, they're criminals, but but they should actually be on a magazine cover.
No, the biggest surprise to me is that this like spawned is like such a big franchise, because it's like this feels like a movie that would have come out and people would have been like, ah, it's fine, and then never talked about it again.
Yeah, how is this a phenomenon?
I don't know. I don't get it.
I think it's a little more fun and maybe slightly more memorable than you do, Austin, but like, it's fine. And I graduated from, oh god, this is a chore, to it's fine. Because what I started to say a minute ago is one of the things that also got me off to the wrong foot with it was not only just like ridiculously pretty people like you're watching CW, and I don't mean that you can't cast attractive people in movies, but it's flaunting it so hard, right? And like the way it. The way it treats women is kind of weird. Like, even for 2001, where simultaneously it's... I guess I'm making a different point real quick. Simultaneously, it's kind of like sexually exploitative, like, look at these really attractive women we have, and doing the real provocative kinds of shots, and having the men... kind of sometimes sort of treating them like pieces of meat, but then also having the kind of token moments of like girl power, like all at the same time, or like having female characters be irritated by guys being womanizing or looking at them like objects in a movie that is absolutely doing that.
Yeah, one of the best lines is when Vin Diesel wins the race and then grabs Michelle Rodriguez and goes, "My trophy."
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And it seems like that's just the world they live in, so they just tolerate it.
Yeah. No, it's, in certain places with stuff like that, like it feels like a GTA movie if it didn't have the satire of GTA.
Yeah, well, and then I looked a little bit at criticism of this, contemporarily, and some reviewers, including Roger Ebert, talked about it like it was kind of a satire, and I did not see that. It seemed like the split in criticisms, pardon me, it seemed like the split in professional criticism at the time, Austin, was between people that thought that the people making this thought they were making a serious movie, and the people that thought that they knew that what they were making was silly, and that they were kind of intentionally doing like an exploitative thing or a parody or something. And I think it might fall someplace in the middle. Like, I don't think it's taking itself crazy seriously.
No, but I don't think so either.
But I don't think it thinks it's making like an exploitation film.
Mm-hmm. No, it's like way too tame for that, I think.
And and you had reviewers that said, well, this would have been perfect for a drive-in movie back when we had drive-ins. And Ebert was in that camp, and he said that, but multiple reviewers said that. And I have a hard time speaking to that because I grew up in the 90s and those were already gone by then. And so
you guys just don't have drive-ins? They like actually blew my brain.
Yeah, well, not they're not popular.
Okay, yeah.
There's like one here in my area, and it's a big metropolitan area, and it's a very throwback kind of thing. So I don't really know what a drive-in movie is supposed to look like. You know what I mean? Versus just a movie that you would go to a drive-in to see. So whenever I hear somebody like Roger Ebert say that, like, "Oh, this is a great drive-in movie," I'm like, I don't have a.
It's about cars.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but he's not the only person that said it. So.
It's one of those things, sometimes you'll see a bunch of reviews for a movie and it's like they were all given like the talking points to hit. It's one of those. Just throw in that it's a good drive-in movie.
Maybe, but like I think you have to go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s to get a sense of what that was, and I just don't have the experience to draw from with that. So I I just saw it as kind of a mediocre action movie with your real typical kind of brainless one note characters that don't really have a lot to say about anything.
Hmm. And cars go vroom vroom.
Yeah, exactly. And then you gotta love the token moment right in the middle where the movie realizes that it hasn't given you any backstory or spent very much time drawing its characters, so it does all of it in like rapid succession. Where it's just like now Vin Diesel is gonna explain his tragic backstory, and then right after that, some other character does it. And I was like, oh, I guess this is the place in the movie where this has to happen.
It's the the Pixar back story scene where you get like the sad music and you flash back.
And the movie isn't really about the characters, although it's trying hard enough at that I want it to be more that way, if that makes any sense. Where like if it was just like a fun goofy romp and the characters were all like clear stereotypes in one note. Like I love The Matrix. Those are like intentionally like archetypal characters. And this could have been like that. But instead, it's gotta have like this dramatic like friendship crux, and I think the two main leads in this have a lot more chemistry together as a friend duo than any romantic couple in this. Like I didn't see any sexual chemistry in this movie at all.
Mm-hmm. No, those two should have ended up together at the end.
But I thought I thought any spark of like humanity and like believable characters came from those guys from that duo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wished that had been drawn even a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense that like they become like the main like driving force duo. I think starting with 4 or 5. Up until obviously Paul Walker passed away, but I guess that makes sense. That's why we did that.
Yeah, another reason it's surprising that this turned into a big franchise, Austin, is your two leads are Dominic and Brian. Just like not like franchise staple kinds of first names. Like your iconic duo of Dominic and Brian.
Well, so because like I said before, the only one I'd seen before this was 8, and there's like a big thing where Dominic's like, I got a baby. Like, what am I gonna name him? In the entire movie, I'm like, well, he's gonna be named after Paul Walker. Like, obviously, like he died right before the last one came out. Like, I don't even know why you're hiding this.
Sure.
And then they get to the end of the movie, and he's like, I came up with a name for my baby. It's Brian. But because I'm just, like, in my head, I'm like, oh, Paul Walker? I'm like, who?
Who's Brian? Yeah, no, it's the iconic, legendary character of Brian O'Connor.
Yes. Not to be confused with Brian Griffin, the other famous Brian.
And also, this guy is clearly not Irish enough to have the last name of O'Connor, but that's not here nor there. Maybe the actor is. He didn't seem like it to me. Bob the Hun, $5 super chat. Yeah, exactly. Those O'Connors have been here since like the 1750s. Bob the Hun, a lot of movies back then. Thanks for the super chat, man. Did that girl power with hot chicks that are also eye candy. There was a lot of that in the 2000s, sort of for both genders. Well, and Lara Croft Tomb Raider comes out the same year, and that's definitely got that in spades. Where it's like super sexy. Like hot chick, eye candy. Put that on all the posters. Do all the, like obvious sexy shots for the trailer, and then she's also got to seem like a very strong, independent character, and it's a hard line to walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be fair, like, because I was going to say, especially at that time, I think you still have this now, certainly. you've got like uh, strong actresses, strong women in general that also want to look sexy, and so like where do you draw the line? Like when does it become sensational or exploitative or whatever? But something about the way it was handled in this kind of hit me wrong at the start.
It's too far over the edge.
Yeah, initially, and then it felt like it was reeling it in more as it went along. And that's kind of my review of this: is it becomes more watchable as it goes.
Basically, it hits the gas pedal from the start and then slowly runs out of gas, is what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
No, I mean like on that stuff. Like it hits it like really hard and then dials it back. But
Well,
I put it in a car term.
Yeah, I'd say it more puts it into cruise control. You know, like
okay.
it gets too high octane at the start. You know, it hits the nitrous, the NOS. They can't stop saying that. That's a really weird race in Star Trek Voyager. I couldn't stop thinking about that. The NOS, and then it kind of stalls out. You know, they kind of you have like a little explosion in the gas tank, right? And then they even it out, and then it's in cruise control the rest of the movie, and it kind of levels out to where it should have been from the beginning.
So basically, it's like it hits the exact right time, like on the timer at the beginning of the race, of hitting the gas pedal to get the little speed boost to go straight into first, but then it got hit by a turtle shell and like it drops it down to third.
Yeah, these guys should adapt Mario Kart. That should be the next Fast and the Furious thing.
I'm surprised there isn't like a Fast and the Furious Mario Kart.
Yeah, there is a popular Fast and the Furious arcade racer, which Arcade 1-Up weirdly actually made home versions of. That was a very strange choice, by the way. And then at some point, Nintendo did a home port, but didn't have... I guess they didn't have the license to the Fast and Furious names, so they made it a new cruising game. So that's weird.
That is weird. So they basically Mario 2'd it.
Yeah, well, that happens with stuff a lot, but...
Oh, okay.
This being a movie thing, it's weirder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no kidding. That's very strange.
Oh, but what I started to say a few minutes ago is another thing that got me off to the wrong foot on this was it's not just a bunch of pretty people, but they're also complimenting each other at the very start on how attractive they are.
Yeah, they're all looking at each other.
I didn't like that.
We could all be in a Baywatch reboot. Let's do it.
That's exactly right. Austin, how did you feel about just the overall plot of this? Like, did it feel real standard and predictable to you?
Yeah, that's just kind of how I felt. Was like very standard. Like even the kind of like duo thing, where I was like, I feel like I've seen this a million times. And when I got to the end, and I was like, oh, David Ayer was like one of the story people on that. That kind of makes sense. There's some Training Day in this.
Sure. Yeah, everybody in the comments is talking about Point Break, and I've never seen that, but that's the big thing this always gets compared to. It's just kind of Point Break again.
Yeah, and I was thinking of like Assault on Precinct 13 and stuff like that kind of, and not that they're like fully teaming up like that, but you know, that kind of thing, like that kind of duo. One's a cop, one's a criminal type thing.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you, I kind of wanted the stakes to be a little higher at the start for what the for like what the criminal's goal is. Like, I thought it was a little bit lame that they're just ripping off big rigs to get DVD players.
Well, especially because
given that there's this big like sting operation with the police, it just, I guess it's a slow law enforcement week.
Yeah, and like especially with how it opens, like it's like a James Bond plot. Like the villains have stolen like a nuclear missile, and now we gotta get them. Except you're right, like it's just DVD players.
Yeah,
they're watching. I don't even know what came out at this time. Can't even think of a 2001 movie.
Well, and actually, that's really funny too because there's a point in the movie that's a missed opportunity because there's a point in the movie where they're all at Vin Diesel's house and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go rent the movie," and I'm like, "Well, you keep ripping off." Like these trucks with DVD players. It'd be really funny if you just had a bunch of DVDs that you stole and you're just going through them. That's what it should have been.
They should have just gone full American Psycho and just had Vin Diesel constantly saying he has to go return some tapes.
Everybody in the comments is saying watch the rest of the other movies if you want higher stakes. I get that. And I don't think you should keep ramping it up and making it sillier and turning it more to superhero movies and that kind of thing. But just speaking to this movie.
Not even at them fighting like a tank in the ice. When I watched 8, I was like, this movie is ridiculous. Like, there's a point where The Rock punched a metal wall and bent it. Like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah, like, this is not especially realistic, of course, but the physics aren't cartoony. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of really improbable stunts and like stuff you wouldn't figure people could survive. Maybe it's a little bit cartoony that Vin Diesel's right-hand man at the end gets his arm trapped with that truck for as long as he does, and like it doesn't break or get ripped off or anything. I do like that he starts to pass out.
That's at least something.
That was something.
No, that part was very like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, good call.
Except if Indy was stuck on the side of the truck for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, forever. I thought that was a pretty thrilling kind of climactic scene. Like,
yeah,
I like that chase quite a bit. There's some silly stuff about it. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say I think it's a better kind of finale than the like end race between Dom and Brian. With like all the like really lame slow-mo.
Well, the issue with we're all over the place, but I guess you won't have to give a synopsis now, Austin, because we've been talking for half an hour and we've talked about the majority of the major plot points. But their race just came sort of out of nowhere to me. Whereas like there are I think some character choices in this that are just made for the sake of setting up the next set piece. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you had that, but when you get to the end, I could not decide what Brian's... I don't know, I just keep laughing about these names. It's like, give me more memorable names like Brian, okay.
Everyone watching is like, they're just names. There's regular names, but that's why it's funny.
That's why it's funny, though. It's funny because they made 10 movies with these characters. But anyway, so Brian... had every intention of just before that coming in and arresting Dominic, Vin Diesel's character, and it didn't take much to get him to go, "Oh, let's race for it." And I kept finding myself wondering throughout the movie, like just how much further on Vin Diesel's side he really is over the police force. Like, I could see it going either way. Like, constantly, I was kind of wrestling with this, where I was like, well, he doesn't seem to get along super well with anybody on the force, and he has a pretty rebellious kind of attitude. Like, you almost could have seen him, like, giving up his cover and just going to Vin Diesel earlier in the movie. Or you could have seen him, like always stay on the cop side, but just not like that particular force. I kind of felt like he was, like needed to be a lot more drawn, and it's kind of odd and maybe really telling when your most complex character in your movie is played by Vin Diesel.
Yeah, it's never a good sign.
Because he had a lot more going on, and I don't really know where Brian's kind of chip on his shoulder comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, it just kind of felt like your standard undercover cop guy. Like that's just another one of those places where I was like, I feel like I've seen this a billion times. Like there's nothing really about it that's standing out.
Well, we're getting some ostensible character development for him at the beginning, which is kind of all washed away by the fact that he is an undercover cop, where you're seeing how impulsive he is, and he's like, uh, he's like a hothead and jumping into stuff before he's ready for it. And then I'm like, once we find out that he's an undercover cop, I'm like, I don't really get why he did the double nitrous and all of that. Like, it kind of seemed like kind of bad strategy. It seems like he kind of gets lucky that the dominoes fall such that he's able to get in Vin Diesel's good graces, because it's not like I only saw this once, but it didn't seem to me like that was all part of like master chess game he was playing. Like, he didn't know that that rival gang was gonna show up. They reminded me a lot of the triads in Penguin, by the way. But it's not like he knew that rival gang was gonna show up to try to shoot up Vin Diesel and then get him in a situation where he needed to be rescued.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
Or was he rescuing him from the police at that point? I can't remember.
I think he was rescuing him from the police, which I guess you could say like they set up, but
see, I wasn't sure if that was a setup or not.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure because that's also before we find out that he's a cop. But I guess retroactively, it would have to be.
Yeah, like once you find out he's a cop, I kept walking that back in my mind, and I was like, okay, did everything leading up to this really make sense? Like all the choices he's making, because at the start it seems like he just really wants to be he really wants respect from that criminal underworld and the drag racers, and that part of it I guess makes sense with his being undercover, but it seems like he lays it on a lot thicker than he ought to. And it seems like he's just making weird mistakes in, how he's trying to go about winning that race. Maybe the idea for the audience, maybe it's superficial Austin as just he's in over his head and doesn't really know anything about cars. I mean, that's all that is.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least about that part of it, because then later Vin Diesel is like, with the way he's driving, like, you look like you've done this before. So obviously he knows something about driving cars, but he's never done, the nitrous thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could have built that, like, a lot more into his personality as why he was picked to go undercover for this.
Yeah.
Anything, really.
Yeah, his strategy seemed a little bit odd to me. And like I said, I just think he gets really lucky that he's put in the position he is to get, Vin Diesel's good graces. I am glad that they start getting along as early as they do, because I ended up liking their relationship quite a bit. Like, I thought that was one of the stronger things in the movie. Mm-hmm. Again, it's pretty typical. Like, he's got to be, like the wet behind the ears rookie that Vin Diesel isn't impressed with, and he's got to find some way to ingratiate himself. But that all happens a lot earlier than it could have. So it could have been really irritating having to watch that for like an hour before finally you have the kind of the buddy duo thing.
Mm-hmm. No, especially when you were saying that you were already getting flashes of CW. It could have been like the entire movie.
Oh my god. That would have been really unfortunate. And like right at the end, like, hey buddy, old pal.
Oh, we did it. Let's go racing. Everyone's throwing out 2001 movies.
I know, I was seeing that too. Including Dan Schneider in a super chat, $2 super chat, who said Final Fantasy Spirits Within. I don't know why he's bringing that one up specifically, but yes, that also came out in 2001.
That was part of Video Game Mania, I guess. Is there a connection? I don't know.
Yes. If we ever get back to that show, we will watch that movie. Yes.
But all this is making me think is, man, 2001 was a mixed year.
It was a very mixed year. That's right.
Because there's some great stuff people are throwing out, and then some pretty terrible stuff too.
But yeah, there's some kind of odd plot oversights and plot holes here and there.
Yeah, I feel like it's just kind of not really concerned with that stuff. Like it's, like you said, it's very, let's get to the next action scene.
It is, but it also feels like it's trying to make me think that stuff is more organic than it is.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess that's true. Like it's trying to have it both ways.
Yeah, and I just I don't love that manipulation, where it's like just be bold and be a bunch of like crazy action scenes, or yeah, actually tell a story, and it's walking that line a little bit. And I'm not saying there's not a story here. I'm just saying that there are some plot oversights. Like there's and it's not a great story or anything. And it's not like we haven't seen a lot of this before this, but you've got weird stuff like, and again, I've watched this once and it was a couple hours ago, so everybody bear with me. But you've got Brian's boss on the police force that's like, I think we've got enough to take some of these criminals in, and he's like, well, all we've got is circumstantial evidence, like we probably shouldn't run in yet, and he's like no, we've got enough, let's do it. He's like we just need probable cause is all we need, and then so they take in that rival gang and a couple other people, and then they don't have enough to hold them. And then everybody blames Brian, who said, let's not do this in the first place.
Yeah, they were being the Fast and the Furious. They should have waited.
And I was like, okay, fine, you have your scapegoat or whatever, but why did you think this was going to work? Is what I didn't understand.
Damn cops. What are they doing?
I also thought that I also found it unbelievable that Vin Diesel's friend, I like that line about like how they used to know each other before, and then Vin Diesel was like, that was the third grade. That's kind of funny. But I thought it was odd and unbelievable that his best friend was so much better at sniffing out a cop plant than he was. Like, Vin Diesel's character looks like... forget the performance of whether you buy Vin Diesel. And I thought as far as Vin Diesel roles go, he was decent in this. But the best Vin Diesel performance I've ever seen is Riddick, by the way. I think he's actually quite fantastic in that. But he's real streetwise. And his friend picks up very quickly this guy is a cop. I think too quickly, actually. This guy is a cop, and he just keeps harping on that the whole time. And then later in the movie, when he finally finds out he's a cop, he's just completely shocked. And some of the stories that he believes that Brian will tell him in trying to get him off his trail, I didn't buy that he believed all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just supposed to be, they hit it off that much that he can like slip through that and get past his like streetwise nature.
Maybe I would have bought that more if they'd been together a little bit longer. Because, like I said, their relationship is the strongest thing here. I just think they haven't known each other long enough for that.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But I buy that more than one of the main reasons he stays is dating Vin Diesel's sister, because I didn't buy any kind of chemistry between them. I didn't understand why she agreed to start dating him in the first place. Like, it seems like she agrees to go out with him just to slight Vin Diesel's friend. Whatever that guy's name is, I can't remember.
I think his name just is Vin Diesel's friend. You have Brian, Dominic, and friend of Vin Diesel.
Is it...
Oh, his name's Vince.
Oh, Vince, that's right. I could remember. It's Vince. But yeah, she's like, I don't date Dominic's friends. And then Vince walks in, and he's like, just to slight Vince. And I wasn't even sure what her deal was with Vince, besides just Dominic's thing earlier, where he was kind of a pansy and didn't come out back to help him. Is that all it was? Because she's just throwing shade at him so hard, and I'm not totally sure why. And she's just like, remember that place you wanted to take me? And he's like, oh yeah, let's go. And she's like, I'm gonna take him, Brian. And then they go, and then immediately they're sleeping together. And I'm like, okay, like I feel like I missed something. I was like, and now they're a couple, all right. And it was one of those typical Hollywood things where I don't know what these people see in each other, except they're very attractive. Like, yeah, she's hot, and and she must like his frosted tips. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she sees exactly like his frosted tips, and then he sees that she is the sister of his friend. So that's what they have. It's the one thing they got.
Yes, but Sim, my friend Vince is more competent than that Vince. Although, this Vince is oddly competent in being able to sniff out a cop plan.
When Hot Soup said it's just because Vince wants to get rid of him because they're after Dominic's girl, or not girl, his sister. Ugh.
Yeah, and his girl is played by Ana Lucia from Lost, who's like one of my least favorite characters from that show. I've seen her in other stuff. She is a good actress that consistently plays characters I don't like.
Oh, yikes.
Like, I think she's a fine actress. I never like her roles.
I just gotta get a new agent.
Apparently, Brian's girlfriend, for whatever reason they're dating, and Vin Diesel's sister, apparently that role was originally written for what's her face, Faith from Buffy, and
Elijah
Dushku, and then she turned it down, and she probably wishes she hadn't done that, because she didn't have anything like the career everybody thought she was going to. Mm-hmm. She never really broke into movies that hard.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, this would have been really good for her career.
Yeah. And Dushku was fan cast for things forever, and just never really broke into movies that hard.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, she was like in every single Geek's fan casting for every single Geek project.
No, that's right.
Her and Fillion.
Yep. But anyway, I don't know. Those are some of my complaints and nitpicks.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, that's fair.
But a lot of the action stuff is serviceable to fun. I did, like I said, I did like the big rig thing at the end. I wasn't sure why they were trying to rip off 18-wheelers while they're moving in broad daylight.
I think just because it's like a car movie, so it's like we have to use cars to do it.
Is that why? That's why you want the stakes to be higher, though, right? We're really risking our lives for DVD players.
Yeah, but Cap, I don't think you understand. They want to see such hit films as American Pie 2, Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase.
Oh, is that why people were listing a bunch of movies from that year? Like, these are the movies they could have been stealing and watching.
Yeah, because I tried to make that joke, and then I
couldn't think of any movies.
I couldn't think of any 2001 movies, so everybody filled in for me.
Thanks, guys. Our viewers are very helpful. They gave you a cheat sheet.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to see Hannibal, or Shrek 1, or Spy Kids, which makes sense, because Vin Diesel looks like one of the thumb people from Spy Kids.
Robert says, I do admire the loyalty Vin Diesel has for his fellow cast members. We joke all the time about the family stuff, but it is genuine and adds to the charm of the series. And I haven't seen anything past this, so I can't speak to that at all.
Hasn't he also had like a bunch of like rivalry stuff with like a few of his cast members, like The Rock and Ludacris? I don't know like too much. Like I'm genuinely asking, and not you specifically, Cap, because you probably don't know.
He only sees himself as family with the earlier actors.
Oh, okay.
The first couple of these.
Yeah, everyone else has to spin off because we need to get them out of there.
Yeah, it did feel like that idea was sort of there from the beginning. Like, you know, it's not silly and as blatant as it apparently is later. You know, with I mean, I know that just from advertising and osmosis, but like that is kind of a theme from the start.
Yeah,
Just the
yeah,
just the
exactly.
idea of the family that you choose versus the family that you're born into.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it more so comes down to like that Flanderization thing, where it's like at a certain point it almost becomes a meme that you just
yeah,
keep saying it.
but I did
Like
think it
here, like it's
was.
more of like a character
But I did
place.
think it was interesting that that wasn't just a thing they generically came to later. That like, and it's not even, you know, it's not even funny. It's just, kind of the idea of all these people that wind up together, and that was kind of a charming idea, I guess. That uh, Vin Diesel could kind of, kind of thought he could do all this stuff by himself, but all these people just keep dropping into his life. Like the idea that he's like a magnet for people.
Hmm.
There's kind of kernels of good ideas in this.
Yeah, for sure. Um, no, I mean, I guess like at the end of the day, like it is like mostly competent.
Yeah, I also like the idea that, and I wish this was brought to the fore and uh, was really explored, Austin. I Because we don't really talk about his obsession with drag racing as an addiction, but it is.
Hmm.
The idea that, and an addiction that comes from a real grief-stricken place. That comes from the trauma he experienced with his father's death, which is over the top, like really over the top. But I liked what little discussion we had about his um about his doing all this illegal activity in order to bankroll his obsession. Like it really is just an addiction. Like he's the only reason he's like ripping off these big rigs and doing all this terrible illegal stuff is just because he can't afford his cars and stuff if he doesn't.
Hmm.
And that's why I wanted the stakes to be higher, because I wanted him to be more in and over his head.
Yeah, and I also expected it to be more about racing than it ultimately was.
Yeah, that's true too. Also, just it goes without saying, just super convenient that in the middle of California they're able to do that kind of drag racing, and they'll just kind of wipe it under the rug and be like, well, if we address it in like one single line of dialogue, it's fine. So it's like, well, we know the cops aren't going to show up while we're in the middle of this racing because somebody got murdered, and all the cops are over there. All of them. They all went over there. And so now we can have our drag race. And oh no, the cops got called. Let's take these, 45 cars and drive them all in separate directions.
The city just flooded like 3 weeks ago, so Batman's busy doing other stuff. He's helping
Oh, Austin,
people.
that's a different review.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Sorry.
And they're in the middle of California. There's no traffic.
Mhm. Yeah, and I thought that was like one of the worst looking action bits because like the CGI in that sequence was really rough, and there was
Yeah.
just like a lot more of that there, where it was like, oh my god, like almost every shot of this looks terrible.
Well, I think that's
And then
probably why
after that, it got better.
I'm praising the climax so much, because a lot of that looked practical to me.
Mhm.
Apparently, they didn't drive any of these cars very fast, though. They had to do a lot of speed up footage.
Oh yeah, that doesn't shock me. It doesn't. It's not as apparent as Rage of the Lost Ark though, where they're driving like 10 kilometers down the road.
I'm not sure why Dan Schneider's feeling the need to get into this right now, but I think he's talking about Dushku.
Yes.
Said she was sexually harassed on the set of her last show by Michael Weatherly, and they fired her when she complained, and that's why she retired. Yeah, I hadn't heard about any of that.
That sucks.
But
And he also said that she.
But I wasn't even talking about why she hasn't been in things recently. I'm just talking about why she didn't have a movie career, because she did mostly TV stuff. You know, and I think people right after Buffy really expected her to be a big movie star.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's all I was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he also said she turned down a Faith spin-off to be in True Calling, which bombed. She retired from acting and now runs a clinic. What kind of clinic?
Interesting. RJ Godzilla, this is a really good point. He says, it's crazy when you remember this movie came out the month before 9/11. And so then this whole series would be post 9/11 except for this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it probably doesn't change like any of them.
Oh, thanks for reading his first super chat on that. I missed. I didn't realize that was a super chat.
No worries.
Yeah, sorry about that, Dan Schneider.
But yeah, that is definitely weird. I wonder if this had that like infamous Spider-Man trailer in front of it.
It might have. That's entirely possible.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even likely. Who distributed these? I don't even know that.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
It's Universal.
Oh no, I did know that. Yes, it is Universal because it's like one of the big things they have.
So your question at the start of this as to why this became a giant iconic franchise when this feels like just kind of a run-of-the-mill action movie, at least it does to us, is because it made a ridiculous amount of money. So then the real mystery is, why did so many people go to this? Because it did $200 million over a $38 million budget.
Mm-hmm. But see, I can understand like a lot of people going to see this. It's that it kept making money is what is more weird to me.
Yeah,
because it's like, oh, like there's this new car movie, like it might be cool, and then like it's just kind of whatever. But like I feel like it's the type of movie that maybe even if a lot of people saw it, they probably don't really remember it. I don't know.
Yeah, because
I get watching
it's a star-making movie, but it didn't really have stars in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this is the movie that made Vin Diesel.
Yeah, is this...
I think.
Is this before or after Triple X? I think
no, it's before.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I don't know like the timeline of his career.
I'll double-check that, but I was looking at that earlier.
Did you have like that and this are probably like the two big things that like kick his career off?
Yeah, Triple X is just the very next year.
Oh, okay. Yes, I don't know. People were really excited for stealing DVDs.
By the way, whatever you do, don't write Triple X movie into Google. Don't do that. That was a mistake.
Please tell me you Googled it on Google Images instead of Google.
No, I did not. Luckily, I did not do that. Austin, we're at an hour. Any final thoughts on this?
Not really. I don't. This was a movie. Like I said this to Kat before we started. I had to watch it in two parts because I had to go out for work quickly. But like I was already kind of forgetting the first half by the time I started the second half, even though it was only like 2 hours later. I was like, okay, like I'm struggling to even remember what's happening. Like I feel like I just walked into the middle of a movie I've never seen.
Yeah, I had that with certain characters and plot points a couple hours after watching this. There's a couple of things that are really sticking with me.
Yeah, I can say it's at least better than 8, which is the other one I've seen, so that's something I can give it.
But then at the same time, didn't you also sort of want this to be a little bit more over the top and crazy?
Yes, but like that's too over the top and crazy. There's the balance between them. That has The Rock, like I think he like picks up a missile and like throws it or something stupid. I don't even remember.
I also meant to mention that the Jesse character, the moment he came on frame, I was like, that character dies at some point in this movie. And he does. I knew it. There's no way that guy makes it out alive. And I also thought it was kind of hackneyed plotting to just shoehorn in him making a really stupid bet with like the clearly most dangerous and unhinged character in the movie. Just to give us a plot device to kind of keep the ball rolling after that. Like, that character is only there to have somebody for Vin Diesel to want to avenge at the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And because we need higher stakes, because all we've got is truck drivers with guns. Like, that's all we've got.
Hey, now, they were trying to see such quality films as the first Lord of the Rings, Black Hawk Down, Vanilla Sky,
and then
Jurassic Park 3.
And then to your point about it not being as much of a race movie as you expected, that then makes it feel like the whole Race Wars event at the end is only there to get that kid killed.
Yeah.
It's just the structure of this movie is unraveling a little bit while I'm talking about it.
Oh, no.
Robert, Truck Drivers with Guns is my favorite sitcom.
I mean, isn't that just redundant? Isn't it just truck drivers?
That's true. Maybe Vin Diesel should not have been as surprised as he was when that guy had a shotgun. He's like, oh, now they're carrying shotguns. I'm like, now? They're truck drivers.
They shoot now. Yeah, they always did.
They always did that.
It's like the one thing they've got.
Well, I don't know. Maybe at some point I'll watch more of these. I'm not like, stoked to rush out and rip off DVDs from a big truck so I can watch more of this. But
you're not excited to see a film called Too Fast, Too Furious?
Not really. That's not at the top of my dance card or anything. But I will say, it was very refreshing that the whole movie didn't feel like the first 10 minutes. Because I thought I was going to hate this.
Yeah, for sure.
And all the needle drops didn't help.
No, they're pretty rough.
We didn't talk about that, but the constant incidental music is kind of oppressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's also kind of bipolar, right? It's like, pick a sound. Smallville also has that problem, but it's like pick a sound.
They should have been stealing CD players so they could find better music.
Because it's a bunch of period, like, rap and hip-hop, and just stuff that's not my thing in the first place, and, like, music's subjective. You're going to like what you're going to like. But that gets me off to the wrong foot with it, too, where I'm like, this is just, nothing about this is made for me. And then you start getting some of the hard rock stuff that I liked from that period, or at least in the vein of stuff I liked from that period, more toward the end of the movie, and I was like, where's this been the whole movie? It's like, pick a sound!
Pick a lane.
I was avoiding that. It seemed obvious.
No, it is. Which is why I had to go for it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, you should be excited to watch all of these quality films, like Too Fast, Too Furious, and all of the other weird titles, because this is like one of the most bizarrely titled franchises as well. Yeah,
there's no sense of consistency.
No.
Like, it looks like a Nintendo franchise at this point.
No, when I saw 8, the title that it was called was Fate of the Furious, and now every time I see it come up like on streaming services, it's just called Fast 8, so they also just changed that title.
Yeah, and also
It's very weird.
you can't call your movie that unless you're sure it's the last one.
I guess that's why they changed it. They're like, we can't call it that anymore.
Oh, but yeah, maybe so. It's
But
like,
I
no,
also
we're
think
going
that
to be
was
making these
supposed to be the
forever.
last one.
So,
I think they've said now like a couple times, like, oh, this is going to be the last one.
if you think about it, it's pretty wild. In 24 years, they've made 10 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a lot.
That is true. And then I think, because people were comparing this earlier to Mission Impossible, and I think it has the same kind of thing where they're doing like a two-parter finale, and then part one didn't do very well at the box office. And I don't even know like if they're making 11 now or like if it's just kind of delayed.
Well, they finally had one that kind of failed.
Yeah, I think like it didn't do especially great.
Well, that's unfortunate for them, but it's probably terrible.
I think that's the one where they put like rockets on their car to fly it up into space. But it might not be, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. This sort of franchise has to keep topping itself with, giant, ridiculous action. Like, at some point, you're going to go to space.
Yeah, of course. And in cars with nitro.
Like how long before you add dinosaurs or something?
No, exactly. I'm shocked they haven't gotten there yet.
Like you're going to get more sci-fi as you go along. It's just like James Bond.
Dominica, I need you to drive my DeLorean. I'll do it. For my family. And then he goes back in time and kills all the dinosaurs.
Yeah, they should do the one that's... Well, I was going to say they should do the one that's all, like, retro cars.
Well, Universal also owns Back to the Future.
That's true.
They could just have Doc Brown show up and bring in the DeLorean.
They also own Jurassic Park.
Exactly. See, now we're talking.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping them from doing all of that.
What other things do they have? They could literally jump Jaws.
Yeah. Well, and then E.T. would be doing the jumping.
Oh, he's in the passenger seat with them. Or well, okay, would it be that? Would he be in the passenger seat, or would the little basket be on the front?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, exactly.
Like the engine that sticks out of the hood. Instead of that, it's a basket for ET. Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah, I just think that they should make Fast and the Furious like part of the Universal logo. Where it's just a car driving around like da 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 da.
Because they used to have the one where like the plane would fly around the globe. They could do it with a car.
They should do it with a car. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in space too.
The dinosaur eats the car.
That's how 11 is gonna end. Is Dominic flies into space with his car and then spins around the globe so fast that he reverses time.
That's inevitable.
Yeah,
you have to have that. Hot Soup says there are cyborgs in Hobbs and Shaw.
That's insane. All I know about that
Of course there are.
All I know about that one is the Rocket's like an army of people, and they have like sticks and stuff, and they fight off helicopters.
Robert says they're building a new Fast and the Furious roller coaster at Universal Studios.
Did they not have one before? Maybe it's just a new one? I don't know. Maybe
so. I don't know. But some of you guys talking about how stupid these movies are, that is the selling point.
Exactly.
Well, I haven't seen any of the later ones. So I don't
ideas.
I don't know if I would enjoy the stupidity or not. I've not watched them.
Mm-hmm.
But Austin says they go too far.
I mean, I've only seen 8. I've only seen 1 and 8, which are like the complete polar
opposites. Yeah, you were not prepared for how just kind of normal this movie was.
Yeah, no, it would be like watching Iron Man and I don't know, Shang-Chi, and like those are your 2 experiences with the MCU.
Yeah, you didn't see anything in between.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, they're fighting a dragon and stuff now, I guess, and meeting Pokemon. That took a turn.
Yeah, he's like, this is why people don't understand evolution. They weren't there for all the middle steps.
Yeah, exactly.
Bag, when Fast X came out, all of us who worked at the movie theater I was at came up with a ridiculous crossover between like 7 Universal properties. They
That's
did exactly what we've been doing.
That's beautiful.
Robert says people have been asking for Fast and the Furious versus Jurassic Park for years. I'd be there for that.
I mean, at this point, why not?
Sounds great.
Imagine if that like just happened in Dominion, like Alan Grant and them show up, and then Dominic Toretto shows up, and he's like, "Oh, we got to stop the Gigasaurus, aka Jokersaurus. We got to do it."
Or they could do, I don't think this is Universal, but they could do like John Wick shows up to kill Dominic. Although that'd be over in like 5 minutes.
That's like that's why that's such a funny concept. He just shows up and kills him, and that's the crossover.
That's it. Yeah, and then
he looks into the camera and he goes, "Yeah, I'm thinking it's about family," and then he drives away.
well, I'm just thinking, he's a car guy. He might fit in this
That's true.
universe.
That is true.
Anyway, let's announce what we're doing next time. Carl Maxey asked us... So, I didn't look into this, but he said the first season of this was real short, so we're supposed to watch the episodes for that. I'll see how long it actually is and if that makes sense, but he wants us to do the first season of Fantastic Four World's Greatest Heroes, which I have done a commentary for the pilot for the past, and maybe I've seen a couple other episodes.
That's the 2000 show, right?
Yes. I've dipped my toe into that one, but I've not watched very much of it.
I definitely watched a bit of it as a kid, but it's been so long.
So we're doing at least some of that next time.
Okie dokie.
Alright, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Austin and I will be back tomorrow night for a Rewind commentary on the Toxic Avenger, so join us for that if you are so inclined, and just be prepared for the offensive nature of that if you've never seen that movie and you want to come watch it with us. But in the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin the Day Ghost.
Yep. I was me.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you later.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.